My cousin Julia tried to ruin me over my ex-boyfriend. Me cousin Julia, 27, started dating my ex-boyfriend Lewis, 29, 2 years ago. I had been in a relationship with Lewis for 3 years. We started dating after he graduated from university while I was in my second year of college. We broke up a couple of weeks after my 20th birthday. Honestly, our relationship wasn't great, and I really regret that my first serious adult relationship was with him. From the outside, we seemed like the perfect couple, but in reality, it was very different. He was extremely insecure and controlling. He restricted me from doing many things, going out to bars with friends, talking to male friends. He constantly monitored me, and if I didn't do what he wanted, he would manipulate and gaslight me, making me feel like everything that went wrong in our relationship was my fault. I was terrified of losing him and did everything I could to make sure Lewis wouldn't leave me, but it still wasn't enough. Eventually, he left me, claiming our relationship wasn't working out, and then blocked me so I couldn't contact him. I tried very hard to reconnect, but after the breakup, he completely disappeared. 2 months later, I found out from mutual acquaintances that he already had a new girlfriend. It was a complete waste of my time. We didn't communicate for a long time, but when I turned 25, he finally unblocked me and sent a message, "Happy birthday." I didn't reply and thought it was strange that he even reached out, since by then I already had a boyfriend. He kept messaging me despite my silence, so I eventually had to block him. After that, we didn't talk for several months. But a few months after my birthday, Julia invited me to her home. When I arrived, she said she wanted me to meet her boyfriend. To my shock, it was Lewis. It turned out he messaged me on my birthday to try to reconnect before meeting Julia. They had met at work, started dating, and were very serious. Julia and I had been extremely close since childhood, so this news hit me like a ton of bricks. She knew very well how badly things had ended between Lewis and me, and how toxic he had been to me. I was completely stunned to find out they were together. Julia said she understood my discomfort but asked me to give him a chance. I really tried to accept it, but it was too much. I wanted to be happy for Julia, but Lewis had caused me so much pain in the past. These were my first serious relationships, and he had truly ruined my life. I felt immense resentment toward him for the way he treated me. I tried to explain to Julia as tactfully as possible that, while I wished her happiness, I could not accept that she was now with Lewis and that I no longer wanted her in my life. She was deeply upset and tried several times to talk to me, but I couldn't come to terms with it. She knew better than anyone how toxic he had been to me and how deeply he had hurt me, yet she still continued dating him, claiming he had changed and was a better person now. I didn't believe her. She could have a relationship with him freely. I had no problem with that, but I also had the right to remove him and, by extension, her from my life. It was simply necessary for my peace of mind. Of course, this was hard. Julia and I were not just cousins but very close friends. But for my own well-being, I had to make this decision. After she told me she was dating Lewis, I almost completely stopped communicating with her. For the last 2 years, we were cold toward each other. When she realized I wasn't going to talk to her, she began acting distant herself, which I didn't blame her for. We would see each other at family events but simply ignored each other. We had always been inseparable before, gossiping and spending time together. Now everything had changed, and honestly, I was okay with that. Everyone has their own life, and everyone is free to do as they wish. I had no complaints about Julia. I just didn't want to speak with her anymore. Apparently, she took this personally and wanted revenge. She started spreading nasty rumors about me among our relatives, trying to ruin my reputation. I thought it was completely unnecessary. I would never have treated her like that. Even after our estrangement over the last year, she claimed that I was the reason Lewis and she broke up, saying I had no moral principles. Along with Lewis, she spread rumors that I had been flirting with other guys right in front of him and that this was the real reason for his jealousy and controlling behavior. They made it seem like I was a flirt who caused his insecurity, when in reality it was the opposite. He allowed himself to flirt excessively with other girls while expecting me to be fine with it. He didn't like me having male friends and constantly manipulated and gaslighted me, gradually forcing me to cut off everyone I cared about. I'd hurt that they tried to slander me in front of my own family. But to be honest, I was too busy with my own life to take it seriously. Besides, no one really believed them. So I decided not to react. I knew that any reaction from me was exactly what they wanted, so I consciously avoided falling for their provocations. I also understood that I could have easily stopped everything if I wanted to. Just one conversation with my aunt would have been enough to put an end to this circus. Even though I was no longer close with Julia, I still had a very good relationship with her mother. My aunt is a federal judge, and I was confident she would act correctly. She's my father's older sister, known for her iron character, and she would never do anything dishonest or wrong. I still don't understand how Julia grew up the way she did, considering who her mother is. One conversation with my aunt would have been enough to stop all this, but I also knew it would hurt Julia herself. She was quite financially dependent on her mother. She had recently launched her own jewelry line, but as far as I heard, it wasn't doing very well. In any case, I didn't want to bother my aunt with such trivial matters, and I was confident I could handle everything myself, so I said nothing. Honestly, I was even a little curious about what other ridiculous rumors they would invent about me. My cousins regularly came to tell me what Julia had said this time, so for me, it became almost entertaining. Then, 6 months ago, they got engaged and announced a wedding date. Soon, my parents received an invitation, but I did not. That suited me perfectly. I didn't expect an invitation, and even if I had received one, I wouldn't have gone, given everything that had happened between me and Julia, not to mention Lewis. The wedding took place 3 days ago. For me, it was just another day. I wasn't paying much attention to what was happening, but at some point, my phone started blowing up with messages from relatives. Everyone was talking about some speech that Lewis and Julia had made at the wedding, and I was completely confused. Then my parents called and said we needed to talk urgently. They explained what had happened. I lost my temper. It turned out that they had used the opportunity to deliver a disgusting speech about me, spreading all sorts of lies in front of a large audience. They wanted to turn all the relatives against me, and they might have succeeded if I hadn't had proof to use against them. Julia and Lewis were cunning enough not to mention my name directly, but they kept referring to some ex-girlfriend who wasn't at the wedding. It was obviously me. They repeated all the rumors they had been spreading about me for years, claiming I was a gold-digging flirt who depended entirely on Lewis and expected him to pay for everything. They said he had to support me because I insisted on it, even though I was just a normal student with no extra money. This was an absolute lie. I had always insisted that we split expenses on dates, and I never expected him to pay for anything, let alone demanded it. But the worst thing they said about me was that I supposedly cheated on him, and according to them, this was the reason we broke up. At the wedding, they said they were happy I wasn't in their lives anymore and that I wasn't at the event because they didn't want my negative influence around. They even gave relatives an ultimatum: from now on, if I attend a family event, they won't, and if they attend, I must stay away. After that, my phone was flooded with messages about the situation. I only got the full picture from my parents. I was furious. I thanked them for leaving the wedding immediately after the speech, refusing to tolerate the vile things Julia had done. My parents also told me that my aunt was completely shocked by what happened. She immediately spoke with Julia and Lewis to check whether what Julia said in her speech was true, because it didn't sound like me at all, and she was right. I hadn't done anything like that, and her doubts about her daughters' words were completely justified. After finding out what they said about me at the wedding, I decided not to hold back. I found old screenshots of messages proving they were lying. It took me a while to scroll through and find the exact conversations I needed. Luckily, after a lot of searching, I found messages from my ex during our breakup where he was particularly toxic and cruel. He said awful things like regretting ever dating me, wasting 3 years of his life, and that he could have been with other women instead. There was no betrayal on my part, and I'm certain that if I had actually cheated, he wouldn't have let it go so easily. I found even more messages where he acted toxically toward me. I posted all of this online without explanation, without a signature. The chat spoke for themselves. After posting the screenshots, people began messaging me and commenting, saying they always knew the things said about me were false. They found it strange that anyone could think I'd behave like that because they had known me since childhood and knew I wasn't that kind of person. The screenshots clearly proved it was all lies. Realizing that my family was on my side, not theirs, meant the world to me. Some people even told me they had left the wedding because of what was said. So, even though Julia and Lewis hoped to turn everyone against me, their speech backfired. Nobody is on their side now, not even my aunt, Julia's mother. They contacted me right after the wedding, tearfully apologizing because they realized they couldn't win after my aunt saw the screenshots I posted. After that, my aunt told them how disappointed she was that Julia had lied and tried to ruin my reputation just because I refused to continue a relationship with her after she got involved with my ex. By that time, most guests had already left due to all the drama. My aunt also told Julia that she was deeply upset by her behavior and expected better. Until Julia sincerely apologizes and I forgive her, my aunt refuses to have anything to do with them. Even though Julia tried to persuade her, my aunt left the wedding. That same night, Julia and Lewis called me, tearfully apologizing, realizing they couldn't win. Julia had been financially supported by her mother for a long time. She even planned to close her own business and take a break, which would have made her even more dependent on her mother. But when my aunt decided to stop supporting her, their plan came to an end. Julia became seriously worried about her future. So she reached out to me, hoping I would forgive her, delete my post, and talk to my aunt. I was too angry about everything that had happened. I refused, blocked both of them, and since then they have desperately tried to contact me, trying to convince me to change my mind. And now, honestly, I'm really confused. I don't know what to do. My aunt is a very principled person. We talked, and she herself reached out to apologize for everything Julia had done the day after the wedding. I told her I didn't want my relationship with Julia to affect my relationship with my aunt. I've always protected that bond, and I'm not about to let it change now. Between us, everything is fine. I know that if I spoke to Julia, I could resolve things for her. But honestly, I don't feel obligated to. She is an adult and should deal with the consequences of her own actions. On the other hand, I feel a little guilty thinking I could help her, but deliberately choose not to. In short, I'm confused and need advice. Am I wrong not to want to talk to my aunt and urge her to forgive my cousin after Julia gave that disgusting speech at her wedding, publicly attacking me? Personally, I think my doubts about being able to help, but consciously choosing not to, are completely unfounded. Julia could have just done nothing, but instead, she actively hurt me. The only thing she cared about was making life miserable for me. So, in my opinion, I don't need to do anything. Update 1. Hi everyone. First, thank you so much for all the comments and support. Before I give the update, I want to clarify one thing. My parents attended the wedding, like many other older family members, but they had no idea about the rumors Julia and Lewis were spreading about me. They mostly told our cousins and relatives around our age, not the older generation. My parents came out of respect for my aunt, not because they knew what was happening. Once the older family members realized what had been said about me, they immediately left and stopped interacting with Julia and Lewis. So there's no need to blame or be angry at my parents they didn't know. A week has passed since the wedding. I blocked Lewis and Julia to prevent them from contacting me, but it didn't stop them. They keep creating new social media accounts and sending me messages, which I block repeatedly. They're desperate, but I am firmly decided I will not intervene or help them. I continue to maintain my relationship with my aunt. She has made it clear she will support Julia again only after I forgive her. But honestly, I don't think I should forgive my cousin. I stayed silent for a whole year, letting them talk badly about me, simply because I didn't take it seriously. They took my silence as a green light and crossed every boundary. Now, it's their turn to face the consequences. If I'm honest, I don't think Julia deserves her mother's support. She's almost 30. At that age, a person should know what they want from life. I cannot imagine still being financially dependent on your parents. It's not about ability or education. She's always been too lazy to hold even a basic job. I hoped she would grow out of it, but nothing has changed. In fact, by not giving her financial help, I may even be doing her a favor. Maybe she'll finally learn to work or take something seriously. I've made my decision. I will not help her. I discussed it with my parents to relieve any guilt, and they fully support my choice. Forgiving her or not is entirely my decision. I don't have to forgive her if I think she doesn't deserve it, even if I worry about her future. Lewis still has a decent job, and they can manage on their own if they want to live without my aunt's support. I've talked to my parents, friends, and you all here. Most people agree I have no reason to feel guilty. Honestly, I feel much lighter. Now, I did delete the post with the screenshots of the messages because I saw no reason to keep it online. The whole family already knew what had happened, and I didn't want him, Lewis, to remain in my profile. I have many followers, and it would have been hard to explain everything, so it was easier just to remove him. Now, I'm focusing on myself and trying to let go of all the anger and guilt that had been building up over the past few days. I returned to meditation, trying to stay calm and process everything in a peaceful state of mind. I really hope Julia and Lewis finally start living their own lives instead of centering everything around me and turning me into the reason they get out of bed in the morning. I think it will be better for all of us this way. Update to hi everyone. It's been a month since the wedding. As far as I know, Lewis and Julia are back to their old ways. My aunt still hasn't spoken to them because I haven't forgiven Julia. And at this point, I'm not obligated to. I understand that their apologies weren't sincere, they only apologized for money from my aunt. They didn't feel genuine remorse. They just wanted financial support. A few days after failing to convince me to forgive them, they gave up realizing I wasn't responding. But then they started spreading rumors about me again, and this time it was particularly creative. They now claim that I'm deliberately trying to ruin their relationship with my aunt because I want to take all the inheritance for myself. It's absurd, completely ridiculous. My parents are financially fine, I have a good job, I support myself, and I'm not thinking about any inheritance. God willing, I won't need to depend on anyone financially. Maybe they're the ones obsessed with money, which explains their thinking. Now they spread this nonsense to anyone in the family. Mate, since we live in the same city, this happens often. People start avoiding them like the plague, but they always find a way to bring me up. I honestly don't understand why they're so fixated on me. I've done nothing for a month but ignore them, and they still can't let it go. Last week, I finally told my aunt everything. She said that even if they apologize, she won't resume contact with them. She told Julia this directly and blocked her again. Now they're even angrier. I know this because they created a new email account and sent me a very hostile message. It's their only way to contact me right now. They claimed I would pay for everything. Yeah, scary, right? Not really, but it's frustrating. I told them that if they try anything against me, I will call the police immediately and have them arrested, no hesitation. Let them think what they want. Hopefully, it cools them down. If not, my home security system is excellent. Update 3 for days ago, I received a letter from Lewis and Julia claiming I would have to answer for everything I did. I warned them again, if they try anything, I'll go straight to the police. But this didn't stop them. They did the most idiotic thing possible. Last night, they tried to break into my house. Julia has been to my home before, so she knows I have a very advanced security system. The moment they tried to open the door, I got notified immediately. I don't understand why they thought my door could be opened in the middle of the night. I called the police right away, reporting an attempted break-in. I suspected Julia and Lewis, but I didn't want to take any risks. The police arrived in about 15 minutes. Unfortunately for them, they were dressed like actual burglars. They were caught not far from my house while trying to escape on bicycles. They tried to convince the police that they knew me personally and weren't there to steal anything, they just wanted to break in and talk a little. I don't understand why they thought confessing made their actions acceptable legally. As soon as Julia was handcuffed, she started crying and begged me not to press charges. I have no sympathy left. You can't keep messing up and expect to be forgiven. Lewis looked at me with pure hatred, but I didn't care, it's nothing new. I went to sleep after that, went to work in the morning, and told my aunt and parents everything. They were already aware. Julia even called my aunt, begging to be bailed out, but my aunt didn't even go. Now nobody knows what will happen next. I'm definitely filing a formal complaint because I want a restraining order. They've clearly lost it, and I want nothing more to do with them. One small reflection. Do you think Julia's mother did the right thing by completely cutting ties with her? I've voiced my opinion about such strict parents before. For me, it's hard to understand why a parent would stop all contact, no matter what the child did. Not providing money or refusing to bail someone out, I get that. But completely cutting off communication? It feels extreme. Still, I understand the motivation behind such decisions.